I will say that, like a lot of people, I saw the Getty images of the pillow dropping behind the skirt, and I thought at first they could be photoshopped, but Getty images is very reliable.
Let's not beat around the bush. What just came out of Buckingham Palace sounds like a plot line from a high-stakes drama, not real life. But this isn't fiction. This is happening right now. According to deeply placed sources within the royal inner circle, an official request has been made for DNA testing on Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's children Archie and Lilibet. Yes, you heard that right. DNA tests, not out of curiosity, not as part of some routine check.
So are you saying that he's 2 weeks older? And so I thought maybe that would allow time to wean the baby away from a birth mother if a surrogate was used. It would make sense, but instead of lying to the world, why not just say, we want a baby, we're having a baby, and we're using a surrogate?
But to answer a question that most people assumed was settled long ago, are Meghan and Harry truly the biological parents of their children? Now, before we unpack the full implications of that explosive question, take a second. If you're not already subscribed, hit that button. We're diving into one of the most controversial chapters the royal family has faced in decades, and you won't want to miss what's coming next, because what's being discussed here isn't just idle gossip. This isn't a tabloid headline from the checkout aisle. It's a formal challenge from within palace walls, and the reason: persistent, troubling allegations that Meghan may have staged her pregnancy, that Archie's birth, beloved as it was by millions, might not have unfolded the way the world was led to believe. If that sounds outrageous, that's because it is. But it's not new. Whispers have trailed Meghan since the early days of her pregnancy. Whispers about her baby bump changing shape dramatically, about her walking with ease in towering heels well into her third trimester, about her squatting, bending, and sitting in ways no visibly pregnant woman typically would. At the time, these observations were dismissed, labeled sexist, rude, even racist. Critics were told to back off that questioning a woman's pregnancy was beyond inappropriate. But the whispers didn't fade. They lingered, and as time went on, they grew louder, not softer. Fast forward to today, and what was once whispered is now being demanded out loud. DNA proof, clarification. Royal births are usually surrounded by tradition, public announcements, statements from doctors, and carefully choreographed transparency. Meghan's pregnancy, practically the opposite. No signed documentation from royal physicians. No named hospital records, no interviews or standard protocols, just absence. And it's that absence that triggered an internal palace review, reportedly sparked by senior royal advisors who felt something just didn't add up. What they found only deepened suspicions: missing paperwork, conflicting timelines, and internal records that clashed with what was presented to the world. And so, the request was made, quietly, formally, and precedented. To be clear, if Meghan and Harry had used a surrogate, it wouldn't be controversial. People all over the world choose surrogacy for deeply personal, medical, and emotional reasons. There is no shame in that. But the controversy isn't about how their children were born, it's about the story that was told. If, as some palace insiders now believe, Meghan and Harry knowingly crafted a false narrative, presenting a surrogate birth as her own pregnancy, then this isn't just about privacy. It's about deception. It's about building an entire public persona and royal legacy on a lie. And for a family like the Windors, deception on this level isn't just scandalous. It's dangerous, because this isn't just a family issue. This is about the monarchy, an institution that survives on image, tradition, and most importantly, bloodlines. You don't ascend to power through popularity in the royal family. You inherit it, and that inheritance is based on lineage, heritage, and legitimacy. So when those elements are thrown into doubt, the entire structure begins to wobble. Insiders say that King Charles, now trying to navigate the monarchy through the post-Elizabethan era, was blindsided. already focused on trimming the number of working royals and avoiding public embarrassment. This revelation, if true, would be a catastrophic blow to his reign. Because it doesn't just call into question Meghan's integrity, it calls into question the future of the royal bloodline. Reports suggest that the palace began its review not based on a single moment, but from mounting concerns tied to succession. If Archie and Lilibet are to hold royal titles, inherit privileges, and represent the crown, then their eligibility must be beyond reproach. That's when things took a serious turn. The pregnancy photos were revisited, hospital records were sought, royal medical confirmations were requested. But what was supposed to be easily verifiable turned into a mess of missing documents and silent gaps. No hospital name, no doctor's statement, not even the standard birth registration entries that accompany every royal baby. For a family that publicly shares everything down to the font used on a birth announcement, this blackout raised red flags, and online, the public is tearing it apart. Old videos have resurfaced. Meghan's bump shrinking and expanding within hours. Footage slowed down frame by frame, showing the pillow drop moment where a fold in her dress moved in ways that seemed, well, unnatural. Social media is flooded with memes, comparisons, and even amateur forensic breakdowns of her walk, her posture, and the physics of her baby belly. Some people laugh. Others are outraged, but behind the viral noise is a very real question. If Meghan never physically carried Archie, and Harry went along with the narrative, what else aren't they telling us? Harry, who has built his post-royal brand on being a truth-teller, calling out the firm, exposing media manipulation, framing his family as cold, oppressive villains, might now be caught in a lie of his own making if he knowingly supported a false pregnancy narrative, all while positioning himself and Meghan as victims of dishonesty. The hypocrisy would be staggering, and that's why pressure is now closing in from every angle. Royal commentators who once avoided controversy are now calling for transparency. Former staffers, silenced for years, are leaking what they know. And the palace, long known for its never complain, never explain motto, has quietly shifted. Strategy: they're not staying silent anymore. They want the truth. And they want it on paper. For Meghan and Harry, silence has always been their shield. A carefully curated privacy, a refusal to engage. A strategy that once won them admiration. People believed they were rising above the noise, protecting their peace, shielding their children. But now, that silence is being reinterpreted as avoidance, dodging, a refusal to face the one question that could either clear the air or confirm the worst. Are Archie and Lilibet truly the biological children of both Meghan and Harry? And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Sources within the palace suggest that this isn't just about maternity. The DNA request reportedly involves both parents, meaning the palace isn't just seeking confirmation of Meghan's pregnancy but also Harry's paternity. Because if the children aren't biologically connected to the crown through both parents, then their standing in the line of succession could be challenged entirely. This revelation hit hard. Prince William is said to be livid not just at Meghan and Harry, but at the storm this is bringing upon an institution already bruised from years of scandals, infighting, and public criticism. Princess Anne, according to one insider, called the entire situation a disgrace, and King Charles, devastated, privately torn between his love for his son and his duty to protect the throne. The king is said to be navigating uncharted waters, where one wrong move could shatter what little public trust remains in the monarchy. Because, let's be clear, the stakes aren't just emotional, they're constitutional. If there's even a shadow of doubt cast over Archie and Lilibet's legitimacy, then every document, every succession plan, every title granted since their birth could be legally contested. Royal historians are already whispering about the last time bloodline legitimacy was publicly challenged, and it didn't end well. The monarchy may be symbolic, but its rules are carved in centuries of precedent, and this DNA scandal would be one of the deepest breaches of trust in modern royal history. The tragedy here is how easily it could have been avoided. If Meghan had simply shared that she and Harry chose surrogacy, the public would likely have rallied around them. After all, Meghan endured intense media abuse, racist attacks, and endless scrutiny. A surrogate journey could have been framed as a beautiful act of family, privacy, and strength. But instead, if the allegations are true, it was hidden. Masked behind photo ops, documentaries, and public appearances that told a very different story. And now, the backlash is unavoidable. Because people don't feel betrayed by the choice, they feel betrayed by the lie. Even more damning, rumors have surfaced that confidential documents allegedly obtained by palace advisors suggest no hospital listed Meghan as delivering under her name, no attending royal physician signed off on her labor. No official record can be traced to the delivery. And for a royal birth, that's not just rare. That's unheard of. The royal family has always documented births meticulously, from Queen Elizabeth's delivery of Charles with ministers present. Yes, that was tradition, to the modern-day media scrums outside the Linda wing. It's part of the legacy. Births are celebrated with pomp and protocol, but Meghan's pregnancy, it came with blurry timelines, shifting hospital rumors, and conflicting stories about where and when Archie was born. And here's the most chilling part. Some insiders believe this was intentional. A calculated plan to create just enough confusion to avoid verification, a carefully layered narrative where each detail could be denied or waved away if questioned. But the problem with playing that kind of game with the crown is that the crown doesn't forget, the public doesn't either. And now, what was once a quiet suspicion is a growing movement online. People calling for accountability, commentators breaking down every piece of footage, former royal staff stepping forward with unofficial observations. One even claimed Meghan's security detail was instructed not to allow medical staff within a certain distance during appearances, allegedly to avoid anyone verifying the pregnancy's progress up close. If true, that's not just odd. That's alarming. And Harry, he's backed himself into a corner. He spent years defending Meghan at all costs, publicly attacking his own family, accusing them of racism, cruelty, and neglect. But if he knew that the pregnancy was fabricated and went along with it anyway, it puts every one of his words into question. Every book deal, every interview, every tear-filled Netflix confession. Suddenly, it all feels rehearsed. And the palace, they stopped waiting for Meghan and Harry to take control of the story. According to insiders, they've drawn their line in the sand. No DNA, no titles, no proof, no place in the royal future. Harsh. Maybe, but in the eyes of the monarchy, necessary, because when legitimacy is questioned, every tradition starts to crumble. The very idea of royalty is built on verifiable descent, and without that, the crown is just an expensive costume. What's most heartbreaking is the children caught in the middle. Archie and Lilibet, two innocent lives born into a storm not of their making. And now, their futures, their identities, and their royal standing hang in the balance, not because of who they are, but because of what wasn't said. What wasn't proven, what might have been hidden. Behind the palace gates, the pressure is relentless. A royal aide reportedly told a journalist they've had years to clear this up. If they won't do it now, the institution will. That single sentence echoes the mood within Buckingham Palace. No more sidestepping. No more curated documentaries. No more tears on catches. The time for carefully controlled narratives is over. The monarchy has entered crisis mode. And the timing couldn't be worse. With King Charles navigating a fragile reign after the loss of Queen Elizabeth, and Prince William preparing to take on a larger leadership role, this kind of chaos from Harry's side of the family threatens everything they're trying to stabilize. Public trust, already shaken by Prince Andrew's disgrace and the Oprah revelations, is on thin ice. If the monarchy is to survive into the next century, it must be seen as clean, transparent, and above manipulation. That's why this DNA request feels so seismic. It's not just a personal accusation, it's an institutional safeguard. a last resort move to protect the throne's legacy from a storyline that, if proven false, could haunt it for generations. And here's the real catch. Even if Meghan and Harry agreed to the DNA test, it might be too late. The damage is already done. The doubts have taken root. The footage, the photos, the memes, they painted a picture in the court of public opinion that no single test result can fully undo. But if they don't comply, the consequences could be devastating. No titles for Archie and Lilibet, no royal honors, no official recognition, and most of all, no place in the royal history books. The children risk being remembered not for who they are, but for the storm surrounding their existence. And yet, even now, Meghan and Harry remain silent. To some, that silence is dignified. To others, it's calculated, and to many, it's damning, because in the world of royalty where everything is symbolic, and silence speaks louder than words, their refusal to address this head-on is being read as an answer in itself, a quiet admission, a hidden truth, a truth they hoped would never come to light, but it has. And now the world is watching. Not just curious observers or tabloid readers, but constitutional scholars, royal historians, and even lawmakers. If there's a scandal brewing over royal succession and legitimacy, it's not just a PR disaster, it's a legal and national dilemma. Will the monarchy revise its titles and honors? Will Parliament need to intervene? Will this trigger a chain reaction in the royal succession protocols? No one knows for sure. But what we do know is this moment will be remembered, not because of a documentary, not because of a podcast, but because the institution finally said enough. Because the crown, for all its silence, finally spoke. And Meghan and Harry, whatever they decide next, whether to fight, comply, or vanish from the spotlight altogether, will define their legacy. Were they victims of a cold, outdated system? Or were they the architects of their own downfall, hiding behind emotion while quietly rewriting history? The answer might come down to one test, one swab, one undeniable truth: the royal gates are no longer closed. The questions are on the table. And for Meghan and Harry, the fairy tale has ended. What comes next may not be a royal drama, it may be a reckoning. So stay tuned, because whatever happens, it will be the most consequential royal chapter in modern history. And we'll be here to break it down piece by piece. If you're still watching, make sure to subscribe now. We'll continue covering the fallout, the truth behind the palace walls, and the stories they don't want you to hear. This is just the beginning.